lot going on. I think it was my friend. I don't know if you've met him. Maybe you have. Maybe that's why he showed me your book. Julian Dory. Does that name ring a bell?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I love Julian.
Yeah.
I did his podcast last year, man. We had a great time.
His podcast is really taking off, man. I did it. I'm originally from Jersey. I'm out in Scottsdale, AZ now, but I
Got it.
did his show in the fall. It's very Joe Rogan style, man. You're sitting there 3-4 hours at a time.
Yeah, man. I was a little bummed when I was with him. I only had like 2 hours, and I felt like we were just heating up by the time I had to go. But I
Uh,
hope I'll get to go back and do a full like a marathon with him.
oh, dude. I think I did like a little over 3 hours.
Wow.
Every time it got cooking, though, he's just like, all right, let's take a break, bathroom break,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
15 minutes. Are you in Philly right now, though? You're
Yeah,
back,
I am. Yeah, I'm
back
back.
east.
Yep.
Uh, when I was talking, how do you pronounce her name?
Saya.
Saya. She was
Yep.
talking about how you might be thinking about bringing a rec place out to Arizona.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I actually spent some time in Arizona randomly last
Oh, yeah.
spring. And yeah, I stayed down in just like what seemed like a super cultural district and learned a lot about the creative community there. But yeah, the vision is to be able to take rec to 50 cities around the world. And I'm hoping that, Arizona is home to one of them.
Dude, that's going to be, I mean, it's probably going to be, I mean, difficult and obviously building it, but probably not as difficult as it was building the first one in Philly. Like, that's
Correct.
kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. I saw your episode with Julian. Obviously, I have the book now, Uncommon Sense, because of Julian.
Awesome.
I mean, it's just so much to do. And these are the people that you want to relate to in life because you being an entrepreneur, connecting yourself with other entrepreneurs. I'm in the same boat of just wanting to learn from everybody as well at a young age. I'm still just 23 years old, still trying to
Wow.
throw myself up against the wall and hoping I stick somewhere,
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to talk to you about how you got to that point where, and in the book, you talk about finding your creative freedom, right? It's in the title.
Yeah.
How did you get to the point where you knew that you weren't just going to like settle for less? Like some people are just like content with, working for someone else. Not to say like a 9-to-5 job is bad, but like there's other people that have creative, things. They have a lot of things they want to accomplish, a lot of people that they want to inspire. And it's a difficult road to go down, but if you succeed and if you're fortunate enough to, it makes it all worthwhile. So I kind of wanted to get to know the reason why, or kind of how you finally got to that point. And like, were there any like obviously struggles early on mentally trying to figure that stuff out?
Sure. Yeah, man. I mean, and the struggles don't stop, right? The
Yeah,
struggles are still
absolutely not.
there. I think as like entrepreneurs, I think we just happen to be a specific kind of segment of people who like embrace doing really, really hard things because we know that like doing really, really hard things are going to build the character necessary to be able to do really, really, really hard things. So I think it just is a little bit of that, like being willing to kind of do the delayed gratification game. And I think fortunately for me, I come from really humble beginnings. And I say fortunate for me because, the way I grew up, I really give most of the credit to, what made me an entrepreneur. I grew up as a glorified problem solver, right? As what entrepreneurs are. Because since young, I had to solve problems, and it kind of just became a part of my DNA. Some people saw the glass half empty, some people saw it half full, and the others were like, yo, I'm going to go find the source of water. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's just like who I am. So fortunately, when I fell in love with my creativity and really kind of wanted to dedicate myself to staying close to that, it was really easy for me to kind of look at the status quo of my family, the people closest to me, and say, nah, that's not it for me. And it was really easy to look at some of the adults in my life at that time and saw how they were living for the weekend, working 2 and 3 jobs, none of which they enjoyed, really to just survive. And I was like, nah, that's not for me either. So for me, being willing to kind of, spend 8 to 10 years in the mud to create the life for myself that I wanted to see, it just made sense,
Yeah.
So I'm really just grateful for the way I was brought up.
It's almost like, and you have to go through certain struggles too. Like without the struggle, there is no, triumph. But at the
Yeah.
same time, there are times where it's like, man, I wish I had a bit of a more steady paycheck starting out, like there's times where like you're hungry and you're like, man, maybe, you see some of your friends too. Like I have a lot of friends who work in finance, like early on,
Yeah.
like making big money. I'm like, huh, maybe I should have went down that route. But like, that's not fulfilling, especially when you have that creative mindset. Like,
Yeah.
what were some of those like turning points for you where you, obviously there was no ever like quitting you, but there were probably times where it was like, man, maybe I should
Mhm.
do something that will be a little bit more stable while I'm building this.
Yeah. So look, I think you're alluding to a few of them, but there were definitely some like key pillar moments of like
Mm-hmm.
not quit moments, but moments that make you remind yourself how much you really want it. You know, before when Rec was really, really young, actually, like while Rec was kind of forming, it was kind of a pivot from a business that my co-founder and I, Dave Silver, built before Rec, which was a production company called Broad Street Music Group. And after we were transitioning out of this production company, just throwing shows, we're throwing 5 shows a week, around the city at one point. We knew we could be more valuable to the artists around us. And we had this idea to build this like community driven record label. And we're like, yo, we're not going to represent any artists unless we raise some starting funds to be able to do it right. So we went on Kickstarter and did a campaign to raise like 50K, right? And on Kickstarter at that time, it was all or nothing. So it was like, if you don't raise 50K, you don't get none of the money. So we invested everything that we had, right, to just run this Kickstarter. We did like 30 events in 30 days to like make sure everyone in the city knew about us. We raised like 39,000 and then we failed, right? So it was like we took all the money that we had made up until then, invested in this marketing campaign for Kickstarter, all the energy of the 30 days of throwing 30 events. And it would have been really easy to quit after that and was
Oh
like,
yeah.
yep, the market doesn't want this. It's over. Go back, go get a job, right? But we didn't, and it was a time to kind of just recommit and rededicate ourselves. And that opened us up for new ideas. The next wave came when, you're out of college now and you're doing your thing and all your friends are getting good jobs and they're making 80 and 90K starting salaries. And you're like, yo, I'm really like figuring it out.
Yeah.
That social pressure is really easy to cave in on. And then you get to be my age, right? I'm 30 now. And it's like my friends are getting married and having
Yeah.
kids. And I'm out here like, my baby of Rec is growing still. Don't worry, So it's
Yeah.
like those things I think are just really the moments that allow you to really prioritize to yourself and say what's actually important. Because the comfort's always going to be there, right? The full-time job and the salary is always going to be there. And the wanting to take it easy and just get drunk on Friday nights with your boys, that's always going to be there. But the opportunity to build a unicorn won't. So
That is 100% true, man. You hit that right on the nail because there's so many times, like even, you've probably had moments where you feel like you're succeeding, you're hitting all your goals, you're hitting all the strides for that week. But at the same time, you're like, I could relax here or I
mhm.
could just keep pushing and see what happens. Like how long and how quickly do you have to relearn that every single day as an entrepreneur?
That's the game, right?
Yeah.
Like the sooner you learn that, the better. And I do think there's a balance that needs to be found. And I think the last 2 years we've been talking about mental health and work life balance and all that stuff. And I do think it's important for young entrepreneurs to take all that with a grain of salt, right? Like I'm 30, right, and I'm talking about figuring out mental health and all that stuff now. But like for real, there was a real need for focus, right? Years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, just to verify the model and validate, the product market fit. That like, no, I wasn't going to family baby showers. No, I wasn't going to my little brother's, basketball game every time. Like I wasn't dating and taking that real seriously. Like there's a real thing, right? And I think when we talk about balance, we have to also remember that the truth is when you're really focused on something like 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be balanced, right? And that's what real prioritization looks like. So I think there's like this whole thing that we like to talk about, work-life balance, but like for real, people got to find the work-life harmony, right? Figure out how to build your life in a way that like your priorities are good and the rest of your life understands, and there's real harmony there because you've designed it in a way that everyone understands what your priorities are and you're not ashamed of it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in college, they would just preach like work-life balance, time management. I'm like, I threw that out the window. Like the second, like I started this, some of my other projects, it's like,
Yeah.
if you really want to make the time and be a part of someone's life and start a business and start all these projects, you'll figure it out. It's up to the person. It's up to your own mindset at the end of the day. It's not about like a certain plan that, professors lay out in front of you. That's
Right.
ridiculous to me.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, man. What were some of the early, before you started rec or anything else, before you even like developed kind of the mindset to be an entrepreneur? I mean, it lives with you, but at the same time, were there any other like early on interests that you had? Any early dreams that didn't quite evolve like you did?
Um, Man, I mean, it's interesting. Like my path to where I am now, was an interesting one, but I think a lot of the dots connect. I went to school, I studied communications media. I had a minor in economics, which I think at the time, a lot of my advisors were like, communications, economics, why do they connect? And like, it made sense to me. I mean, it really was out of an interest, the economics piece. Like, I just personally wanted to understand how money worked and how there was so much of it out there and how come no one I knew had any of it.
Yeah.
But right now what I do is exactly at the intersection of communication and economics. But yeah, I got out of school and the whole time kind of thinking I was going to go into like broadcasting, production, and I interned at NBC Universal and produced content for them. And all that was cool. But then I realized just like how much I didn't enjoy like news and how much I didn't really like that
Yeah.
infrastructure that is that environment. Um, so after that, I went right into entrepreneurship. I started building my own business with my business partner, throwing shows, creating content. And then I ended up getting recruited to work for a marketing agency. So at that point, someone else was like, "Oh, I see your skill set. We need that here. Let's teach you, the real sauce." Um, and then from there, I learned about direct to consumer. Right, I'm running, campaigns for some of the biggest entertainment brands in the world. And once I understood the opportunity that was ahead of us with direct to consumer and what that would mean for creatives and how they could understand themselves as business owners, I was like, oh, I see the future and I'm going to bet the house on what that looks like.
Hell
Um,
yes.
yeah.
What would you want to do in broadcasting early on in college?
Yeah, I mean, everyone tells me that like I've just got a natural knack for speaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of my professors kind of were pushing me to like the broadcaster track, like I was going to be
Yeah.
an anchor on the news or something, But I always obsessed over the back end. So at that same time, I was producing, the TV shows at my college station and having a lot of fun doing that, and more being the maestro of like bringing the right people together to create the end thing. But even as a public speaker now, I'm not going to say my college professors were wrong because I am still using those skill sets. But my skill set was always deeper than just being a face.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I went to school for journalism, did broadcasting, did play-by-play stuff, did
Mm-hmm.
directing and producing on the back end too. And it's very interesting. Like growing up, you're like, I want to do this, because
Yeah.
you have like a natural knack for speaking, like you said. But at the same time, you're like, man, like having the opportunity to create stuff and bring the right pieces in, the right relationships, watching people gel and creating that team, like that is so much more fulfilling than anything else than just being like that guy, like, oh yeah, like it's happening because of me. Like, no, like we all come together and form this really, really cool project. Like, how did you figure out? Because like you said, you and your business partner started
Yeah.
out pretty young. You went through those failures together.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know who were the right pieces to bring a part of rec when you were first building it, as opposed to people who thought it was great at first and then you notice like a few months down the road like they're not as passionate as they were about it
Yeah.
as you were to start?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like the beginning of building Rec as a team was really organic, and like I'll be honest, we made a lot of mistakes, but
Yeah.
we learned. Again, Dave and I have been best friends since like high school, so
Yeah.
like the two of us, we knew how, um, aligned our visions for what we wanted for ourselves was, but also how complementary our skill sets were and complementary even our backgrounds were. So we always just knew that we had a good working dynamic. So I think just us being so different created a really good infrastructure for our team to build on, because it was like we all could understand, I think, the core values around like honoring and celebrating each other's differences, and that kind of made it feel safe for other people to come in and be like, well, I'm weird in this way, here's what I can add. And we were like, bet,
Yeah.
we honor that. And then what would happen was, in the beginning, we didn't have money to pay people, to build the business. So it
Yeah.
was really off of a lot of the volunteer effort, you know, and interns, unpaid, and all that stuff. And the way we like to do it was like, we're not going to put anybody in a role that they don't enjoy or
Yeah.
want. So it was about someone coming to the table and say, hey, I've been hanging around for a while. I see this issue that I believe I could create a solution for, and my skill set aligns, and I got the free time. Give me a shot. And we'd say, bet, go. And there's some people who said that, 7 years ago, who are now senior level, team members for us, who have equity in the business. But then there's a long list of people who said that, but really was more excited about being a part of something than they were about doing the work. And those people faded out. We also learned pretty quickly that, like, yes, our team is pretty much all creatives, but we also realized how important it is to be upfront with people who are artists and being like, hey, I want to have a job working at Rec.
Yeah.
And then we're like, hey, do you want to work at Rec and for Rec, or like, do you want Rec to support you as an artist?
Yeah.
Right. So we had to get really clear and upfront about those conversations. But really, I think it was an organic, like, people identifying problems and being ready to solve them and fill those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, that's business, man. I mean, the thing that you touched on at the beginning of all that was, you didn't have the money to pay interns right away, but like you say, pay an experience. Like, you legitimately made it an effort to invest in their time. Like, okay, we can't pay you right now, but we're going to make this worth your while. Like, we're not going to do something that you're going to be miserable in and think like, oh, I'm not
Right.
getting paid, I'm not having fun. Because you've probably been in a situation where you're making little to no money doing something that you either enjoyed or didn't enjoy. I've been in the same boat, starting out, you do things just to get the experience, just so that you can get your foot in the door somewhere. You
Right.
never know where a conversation is going to lead. But at
Yeah.
the same time, like, if you, from a financial standpoint, if you're not making anything and you're not enjoying it, then that's
Right.
an issue.
What's the
So you have
point?
to figure out how to find that right puzzle piece to say,
Yeah.
this is worth your while.
And that's what I think leadership looks like at that level. It's about understanding, like, who is this person I'm talking to? What are their goals? Like, outside of like this whole Rec thing, like, who are you? What are you good at? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And how can I figure out the win-win, that same North Star where it's like, if we can work together and accomplish this, it's going to get you closer to your 5-year, 10-year goal, just as much as it's going to get Rec closer to its business goals. And if we can't find that North Star, then we're just not supposed to work together at that time. And it doesn't mean it can't happen in the future, but if that alignment's not there, it's really not worth the emotional energy it takes to keep trying to fit stars into round holes, right? And squares into triangle holes. But it's kind of funny though, because right now, like, we have interns now, and we've, matured to a point in the business where, like, even our interns get paid. And I'm just like, y'all don't even know how good you have it.
Oh,
Cause
yeah.
like, for real, I come from the unpaid intern world, and
Yeah.
like, and I would still do those things again if I had to. Because what people don't really talk about is, like, when you're real green, like, yeah, you might do some work for the company, but like, your manager is taking time out of their day to educate you and to teach you. And like, for real, you're more of an energy suck than you are a value add. And no one really likes to have that combo. But it just is what it is. Right. So I'm grateful that we can pay our interns now, but I still love the folks who are like, no, I understand the value of this experience, and I know how I'm going to add value, and I know the value it's going to add to me.
Some people have that old school mentality, man. Other people, like, have you found, paying interns to be less disciplining for them, or do you think they're just as motivated? Because again, you have to find the right people to do it, but at the same time, you're giving them an opportunity that you didn't quite have when you started out. And it's all about paying it forward in that sense. Like, you want your employees to be treated a lot better than you were treated from a past employer at the same time.
Yeah, I can't tell you that, like, oh yeah, since we started paying interns, they've been 3 times as effective. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see that correlation. To be honest, I think there's winners, who are going to be winners unpaid, and there's winners who are going to be winners, paid.
Yeah.
The one thing I think has made a difference is, like, we just got to a point where it was like, you either got to get paid or you got to get college credits. Because if you don't have either one of those things as almost like an accountability anchor, then you're just out here floating. So you'll do things when you feel like it, and you won't when you don't. Um, so that's been helpful. But outside of that, I think there's people who just have it in them that really, like, have the conscientiousness to say, no matter what I'm getting paid, if I said I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all out. And I think that's just remained true whether interns are getting paid or not.
Have you seen anybody come in recently or that has worked with you the past couple years that has like really kicked the door down and kind of has a similar, like maybe not as like as quite as motivated or hungry as you are continuing to build this as big as it is, but have you met anybody that's like, okay, I see a lot of me and you, or a lot of like just like that entrepreneurial drive to keep going no matter how good or bad things get?
Yeah, man. And fortunately, I can think of a few on our
That's
team,
good.
you know, there's a couple of people that come to mind. Like I think of someone on our studio team who came in, I believe, right before the whole pay interns thing kind of kicked in. So I think she came in unpaid, was super quiet, but you knew that like she knew her shit, which was
Yeah.
awesome. And she went from being like the most timid, shy person to like now being here for 2 years, she's calling the shots on productions. She's like leading the team vocally, just expressive through the roof. And you could tell that like she took the time to observe, find her niche, crushed it. And now the confidence has developed to a point where like I'm like, yo, you go ahead, call the shots because I trust you, And like, I think anytime you can build that trust relationship and you give people room to grow and like what a great job looks like for them is clear, I think the right people are always going to rise to the occasion.
Man, did she ever like, I don't want to say like break or bend the rules, but like kind of like make a decision that you didn't agree with, but then it turned out to be really good? Because I feel like those are the moments where you're like, okay, I can trust you now because like you went with your gut and it worked out.
Yeah, and I think that idea of like someone saying, "Hey, I understand, what the directions here are," but they stop for a moment to do some critical thinking and saying, "Oh, this might work, but this could actually be better." Like those are the stars, right? Like those are the types of employees that I think entrepreneurs love because it's like, yeah, I can give you the step-by-step directions, but like if clearly there's a gap here that we could improve on, I want there to be some critical thinking.
Yeah.
And she showed that really early, and I think that's one of the moments that set her apart early on.
What's kind of your training style when it comes to bringing on new hires, whether they're interns or full-time people? Like, how do you get to know them? How do you create that certain culture where they do feel comfortable? Like you said, like she was quiet at first, but then
Yeah.
came into her own and kicked ass. Like, how do you develop some of that through culture?
Yeah, so for me, just in the journey like of the business that we're on now, I'm in a privileged position where like I'm not gonna see an interviewee until they get to like the third round. You know what I mean? Like they gotta check all the boxes with our executive assistant, and then whoever will be their direct manager, and then after that, it comes down to like more of our senior level folks coming in, and then once they get the thumbs up, it comes down to me where it's like, hey, we're pretty much ready to hire this person. Let's make sure that like Will gets to meet them and Dave gets to meet them, etc. But I think the things that are really helpful for us is just spending the one-on-one time up front. Once that person is onboarded and hired, like I want to go out to coffee, right? And just again, it's level setting. What do you want for you, right? Let me understand who you are as a person. And it's the things like, yo, give me your 5 to 10 year vision so I can understand how that aligns with your role. It's about getting to know the person so like, yo, what's your Myers-Briggs, right? Like personality type, like, because everyone is driven and motivated by different things. So like spending the time to really understand that early on is super helpful. And then making sure that people find community within the company really, really quickly, I think is really important. Like you should be able to find mentors within the organization, people that you feel confident to ask certain questions to that maybe others you aren't. And then also figuring out what are your like points of genius that now, even if you're the newest person, you can start to mentor other people around you. I think if we get that right, normally folks are going to be really successful.
So when it comes to rec, and again, kind of, educate me on this, has it evolved into multiple different things over time? Because obviously, like there's the music aspect, obviously just
Sure.
the entrepreneurial mindset of bringing all these creators together. Like
Oh
how
yeah.
many different avenues do you expect this to go down?
Look, man, I mean, our mission is to empower creatives to do more of what they love.
Yeah.
And when you think of such a big umbrella mission as that, that's gonna take a lot of different forms. There's gonna be a lot of different business operations that we conduct to get that done. But most of it is all about, are we you know, educating members so they can be better business owners? Are we connecting them to real world opportunities where they can make money doing what they love? And are we connecting them to each other, right, in a meaningful way that allows them to build community? So there's a plethora of tools that we want to build, to be able to do that. But right now, the core focus is our incubator, giving members access to a space to create on a high level, and the education. And then next to that is our agency, which is really what we've built to create those opportunities. So when we do B2B work with brands like Lyft or, T-Mobile or Urban Outfitters, when we secure those contracts to create documentaries or events or talent buying, we go right into our membership incubator and we pay our members to do that work. So that's really the pillar, right? But what starts to happen though is as we build our community to go beyond the 1,000 that we're at right now, and our agency is getting bigger, from a revenue standpoint, we now have to understand that we're an ecosystem, and it's in our best interest of our community for the ecosystem to grow and create new solutions that solve the problems that are coming up. So, yeah, man.
Do you have any specific projects that you've been able to work with, certain clientele that have really, really set your soul on fire? As opposed to some that you're probably just like, okay, this is the job. But have there been a few where you're just like, this is very fun. Like the creative juices are flowing.
Sure.
I like working with these people. Everybody's having a good time. Like it was actually like a really fun project to work on.
Sure. There's a few that come to mind. The one that's top of mind just because it was a couple days ago. One of the things we learned really quickly is that the information we were giving members was really valuable, right? These are creatives, and then they're learning what entrepreneurship looks like, right, through the lens of creativity. So that was always dope. But the question that kept coming up, folks were like, man, is rec only for 18 and up? Which it is. They were like, damn, I just wish that there were young people who could have gotten exposed to this type of, just business education, equity and ownership understanding and things like that. So we have a model now where we actually pay members to learn our curriculum, and then we send them into high schools to teach young people in high school the curriculum. And that's amazing because it helps us get our members paid to really just reinforce the knowledge I already have, to be mentors to the next generation of creatives. And then it gives a young person, like I can only imagine what I would have turned out like if in 10th grade, I literally was learning that I could build a direct to consumer business around my talent from somebody who looks like me, who's actually doing it in real time, and giving me access to a whole network of people doing it. Like, I think that's really life-changing work. So I'm really grateful for that. Unfortunately, the city of Philadelphia has expanded our contract to continue to do that. So I think that's awesome. And then I also think of, our partnership with a company like Amuse, which is a distribution company and label out of the Netherlands. We partnered with them because they wanted to build more meaningful relationships with creators. And they actually paid us to help develop one of our studios at Rec into the Amuse studio. So that was really fun, hiring a local designer to ideate the vision of what the studio space would look like, and working with the Amuse team to make sure, it brought their brand to life in a way that really made sense. And then most importantly, that the updates to the space would meet the needs of the creators who were using it. So that was really cool because it just checked so many boxes and was so true to our mission.
Oof, man, and just think of all the content creators like 18 and up. Like why specifically is it 18 and up from legal reasons? Because like you do see like 14-year-olds out there with TikToks blowing up, and obviously content creation is just a portion of it. It's a big portion of it in today's age. But like there's just so many obviously different business and legal tactics that you do have to understand before you actually get going in certain things. But why specifically is it 18 and up? Is it because of just legal reasons?
There's a little bit of the liability thing, but it's more of just the culture of the space thing. Yes, I know that there's plenty of talented 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And for Rec, we allow younger folks to kind of be in the space, but they have to be signed up by their parent, and like they have to be with their parent, when they're here. And the real reason for that is like, I never want Rec to feel like a daycare, right? Because if I'm a 30-year-old creator and I'm crushing it, I'm bringing clients through, there's a different feeling I get if like I see in the hallway a bunch of 14-year-olds are walking by, right? And they're doing 14-year-old stuff, So just to protect the culture of like, yeah, we're all creatives, but like we are adults building our businesses. I thought the 18 kind of like threshold of just like responsibility and accountability and all that stuff was more fitting for what we're doing.
Right. You'll still have like those kid-like mentalities, but there are 18 and 19-year-olds out there that act like they're 40 years old. And that's actually really impressive. I was one of those kids,
Sure.
I feel like, broadcasting in high school. But
Sure.
yeah. I mean, now that you explain it from that perspective, yeah, you can't have that 13, 14-year-old mentality running around, especially
Yeah.
the successful ones that are really blowing up. Like it's just going to their heads. You don't want to
Right.
be around that.
Yep. And I also definitely don't want parents being like, oh, time to get a date night out. Let me go drop my kid off at rec. No, that's not the vibe.
Where are you guys located in Philly? Like, is it?
Yeah. So we're in Center City now, and
Wow.
we're located in a mall, right? So
Yeah.
when you think about that, that also added to the decision too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're at Ninth and Market, which is a blessing because it literally is at the intersection of like all of the major public transportation, super accessible by Uber. And it's a real big level up experience wise from our old space in North Philly where we started.
Oh my God. I mean, how many peeps just come walking by and just like, oh, let's check this place out. And then all of a
A lot.
sudden you have a new clientele.
Exactly, a lot, man. And what's really dope about that is when we knew we were coming down to this new location, we developed a retail store because I'm like, yo, we're sitting on one of the most popular shopping districts in the whole city, where they project millions of people a year walking through. So it's been really special to be able to have our members be able to sell their goods out there on the storefront,
Yeah.
most of which it's their first point of sale ever, right? So for us to be able to help members do that and they're earning thousands of dollars a month, that's really all a part of our mission and another one of those tools that kind of pop up when new opportunities pop up for our ecosystem.
Whew, man. You as the head honcho got to wear so many different hats too. What do you think is in today's day and age? There's always something when you're getting to that next stage, that kind of like monkey on your back, chip on your shoulder thing that's just nagging the hell out of you mentally. Like what is that for you right now in your stage in business?
I mean, bro, at the same exact time I'm developing an app, building a new facility in
Yeah.
a city hundreds of miles away, we're hiring senior level talent. There's so many things, but I think the biggest one is we come from a place of having a small, tight knit team where like myself and my co-founder could really be involved with just about every day-to-day decision of the company. But now it's like that's just absolutely no longer our role, and it's the emotional work of being like, yo, I can delegate and elevate myself out of this and
Yeah.
trust that the team's got it and are going to be able to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's just like going from like having a baby to be like, all right, time to go to school now. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah.
It's more of an emotional thing than anything, but definitely a very real thing to work through, and growing pains come with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked for multiple people, very successful people that just didn't want to outsource stuff or,
Yeah.
I guess they didn't trust anybody. Maybe they didn't trust anybody. Maybe they just thought like, I know what I'm doing. Like if I want it done right, I got to do it myself, but
Yeah,
you're not
that's
going
that's
to
a
grow in the long run.
yeah, that's a terrible leadership mindset. And like, I suffered from it. I used to want to make all the creative decisions. Anytime we were having events, I'm like, well, I should pick the talent that best represents us, and I should do this, and I want to see every flyer before it goes out. And like, it was coming from a good place. But then when you realize that like you are now putting yourself in a workflow that if you don't respond very quickly, it's going to slow the whole team down.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I'm over here in meetings to build the app and to be in Miami building relationships and this and that. If I'm slowing our processes down, it's probably not worth it. And, that's just a tough pill that sometimes founders have to swallow. And it's like, yo, this is bigger than me now. I've got a talented team. And if I did my work right, they're all more talented than me in their area of expertise in their jobs. And my biggest role now is to just set them up for success and get out of their way.
Who is the entrepreneur slash mentor that you learned from the most, both these good qualities and bad qualities, what to do and what not to do now that you're the boss?
Mm, the most. That's a hard one.
I'm
It's
sure that
interesting.
there are multiple.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way my mentors kind of work is like I've got a bunch of different mentors all in a very specific like lane. And I think that's best for me personally. So it's hard to say who I've learned from the most, But I'll say the one that's most top of mind for me right now, and it's actually relevant to the convo we were just having. Our lead investor for this round, who actually, real quick, when is this gonna drop? When is this episode gonna air?
I try to get them out as quickly as possible. I'll try to have it out like tomorrow morning for you.
Oh shit.
How's that
Okay.
sound?
All right, so that's fine. So I'll just say I can't say the name yet, but our lead investor, who will be popularized in mid-July,
Got it.
I learned a ton about where I am right now from him, from watching how he leads his team. I learned the ability to build multiple things at once and how to do that efficiently. But I also saw how much whiplash the team can get if you, as a top level creative, are like out here just making different decisions based on how you feel. So I got to spend some time and like see how that works. And it was beautiful to see kind of myself outside of myself and be like,
Yeah.
dang, Will, you were up late till 2 a.m. last night, got a great idea and decided to send that email in the morning to the squad, not realizing that that email is actually the exact opposite of what you said you wanted 3 weeks ago, that everyone's been busting their ass for 3 weeks to get done in time for your 1 month deadline. So I started to see that and to understand that, like, I have to also say, hey, maybe some of these ideas get to wait till the end of the quarter, right? Get to wait till, maybe the top of the year,
Right.
or some of them don't need to happen at all. It's all about really kind of just having that discipline and understanding, like, not everything is as important as it seems. And usually if you let something sit for 2 to 3 weeks, it'll reveal to you how actually important it is, or if it was just an emotional decision you were making.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's tough even with growing the business, going through the growing pains, the mental aspect to it of just like knowing when to say like, okay, I got to be grateful for all the things that I've accomplished so far, what we're doing here, the tools that we have to accomplish what we want to accomplish in the future and all that. Like, and again, writing a book too, like I've heard from multiple entrepreneurs, like it's easy to write a book. It's really hard to write a good book.
Yeah.
How difficult was it writing your book?
I mean, look, man, I didn't look at myself as an author, you know what I mean? Before writing the book, I'm building a company, a startup, a really hard company to build, So for me, the most challenging part of writing the book was like just spending the dedicated time to really being able to sit with it and give it the respect of a creative process that it deserved. But ultimately, I enjoyed it, but also I think at the very end, you get that whole creative thing, which is like, oh, I can make this better and I can make that better. So the hardest thing was actually saying, good enough, give it to the people, but I'm really grateful for the response so far. I think people are really taking a ton of value from it.
You've probably already looked back at it and been like, yeah, I should have added this or that.
Oh my
And,
God, yeah.
like it's already out
Bro,
there, man. Too bad.
yo, but literally, like, I felt that way 2 weeks before publishing it. And,
Mm-hmm.
the thing was, if you don't let it go, you'll keep working on this, masterpiece that just never gets released. But it's all about, for me, giving it to people, even if it's not quote unquote finished, and saying, yo, give me your feedback. Because I've learned that, like, that's what really the best entrepreneurs do, whether they're writing books or building companies. It's like, yo, at the end of the day, you got to ship. Nothing's real until you ship it, and a lot of people love to kind of keep developing, make it better, when really they're just hiding from the feedback of the market, right? And that feedback is really likely the only thing that's going to help you actually make it better,
Yeah.
right? Everything else, when you're doing it before you put it out, is just making your ego feel better, right? But at the end of the day, it's about putting things out and letting the market tell you where you went right and where you went wrong.
The feedback, and Julian touches on that all the time with his show too. He's like, I probably wouldn't do this if the market reacted to it in a different way. Like if I'm getting 5
Yeah.
listens, I'm doing something wrong, and you got to be real with yourself there.
Yeah.
The feedback, no matter what it is from people in the market, that goes to show that you're going through failure, and you have to go through the shitty aspects of failure in order to get to success on the other side of the road, as opposed to, like you said, like your ego telling you like, oh, it's not developed yet, like what are people going to think about it, and
Yeah.
then you're not growing at all, then you're failing in a way where you can't grow.
Right. That's real. Well said.
So again, this book, Uncommon Sense, it's available on the amazing Amazon, I presume.
Yeah, so up until now, it's been shop.recphilly.com. You guys can go right there and get it directly from us. That's best for us. You know what I mean?
That
Amazon.
is great marketing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazon is amazing, but like I wrote a book about direct to consumer, so I
Yep.
absolutely want to give everyone the opportunity to go directly to us. But yeah, as of like yesterday, it's actually on Amazon now, so folks can go and grab it there. But for your listeners, one of the things I did think it was important to do, we do have a code. If folks, hear this, you can go to shop.recphilly.com, type in the promo code uncommon10 as in the number. So uncommon10, and they'll actually save 10% off on the book and be able to save some coins.
Ooh, there you go. Uncommon 10 for those of you guys. I'll put that in the ad at the beginning of the episode too. Is that all caps, uncommon?
Yeah. All caps, uncommon, UNCOMMON 10.
Yes, sir. Uncommon. William Tyrone Toms. Will Toms, as your friends probably call you, man. You got an event today, from what I saw?
Yeah, we have an event tonight, man. So a couple of our members, they have a brand called Cream. It's a clothing brand, super dope, and they're actually taking over our retail store today. So they'll be going crazy in the shop, man, and bringing people through, and hopefully selling tons of merchandise. So looking forward to that.
That is awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I won't take 3 hours of your day like Julian probably would. I try to keep them short and sweet. It's like, I didn't mention we're 4 hours deep into this, but you got a lot going on, man. Next time we do this, I'm flying you out to Arizona. You got to check out the studio. You got to check out the entire space too in Phoenix, man. I think this would be a perfect spot, the way that this city has blown up over the past few years.
I love it. Cool, man. I'm excited to come out there and check you out.